Okay, so today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be writing out chemical formulas that have already been written out in word form. And so what we're going to be working on is how to decipher these word equations, because when you come into the next couple of units, you're going to have to know how to read a chemical equation so that you're able to then put it into chemical formula form and you're able to balance it, because if you're not able to do that, then it makes some of the other steps very difficult. So what we're going to do is we're going to break it down into a couple of different times. And so what you need to know is that there are a couple of things that you can automatically cross off within the chemical formula, within the sentence, that you just will be able to recognize. So here's what we have on this board. So I have here sodium hydroxide and, or sorry, aluminum hydroxide and sodium phosphate reacts to form aluminum phosphate and sodium hydroxide. So there are a couple things that we can be able to do that we can start to break the sentence down. So the first thing that we can do is that wherever you see an and represents a plus sign. Okay, so every time you see an and, you know that you have a plus sign, meaning that it's separating out two of your products or two of your reactants. So I just put a parentheses and a plus there. The next thing you see is reacts to form. So the reacts to form is the arrow, and the arrow is just telling us that we're going from a reactant to a product. So this is the same thing over and over and over and over again. The rest of it is stuff that you are able to do. So you notice that we have aluminum hydroxide and sodium phosphate reacts to form aluminum phosphate and sodium hydroxide. So what we're going to do is we're going to then just write out what each of these individual parts are. So for aluminum, we know it's Al. Hydroxide, we know it's OH. Sodium, we know it's Na. Phosphate, we know is PO4. And then we do the same thing for the product side. Al, PO4, Na, OH. So what I have here is now this. So I know that I have AlOH and NaPO4 yields, okay, AlPO4 and NaOH. So the next thing that I need to do is I need to then add my charges, right? Because you need to always make sure you remember your charges to have a chemical formula. So I'm going to do that in black marker here. So I have Al, which is +3, OH, which is -1, and I know those based on the placement of them on the periodic table and or the polyatomic ion chart. Na is +1, PO4 is -3. Do the same exact thing because charges carry over from the reactants to the products. So you notice that Al is +3, PO4 is -3, Na is +1, OH is -1. So I have this right here. Okay? So what I have here is then I have my charges, right? So I'll put it up a little bit closer so that you can see. All right, so what we need to do now is we need to now crisscross our charges. And so when I crisscross my charges, I need to make sure I bring my 3 over in front of the Al, the 1 down, right? Na is PO4, right? 3 goes down in front of the Na. Then the 3's cancel out for the Al and PO4, and the 1's cancel out for the Na and the OH. So it looks like this, right? So now I have everything that I need to have in order to write this out correctly. So the next thing I want to do is then I just want to write it out in a sentence. So in the same equation format. So I have Al, right, parentheses, OH3, close the parentheses, plus Na 3 PO4, right, which yields, okay, Al PO4 plus NaOH. So now I'm almost done. So this is really taking a look at this, right? So now I'm almost finished. And so then the next thing that I have here is then I have to then put a 3 in front of the NaOH, and so I put a 3 in front of the NaOH, and now I have a balanced chemical formula, right? So I went from the word form up here, reacts to form, the product down here, and then I come up with my balanced chemical equation. This is what you're going to be doing for the assignment today. And so it's the same thing over and over and over again, right? There's a couple exceptions to the rule here. So there are a couple things that you need to remember. So if I take in your practice problems, you're going to see that there are a couple elements that are going to be by themselves. They're going to be referred to as like chlorine gas, um, or as bromine gas, or as fluorine gas. And so what you need to know is that you have these 7 diatomic elements that if they're by themselves, they're always paired with each other. So if I have like hydrogen gas, right, you have to write hydrogen gas as H2 because it's a diatomic. If it isn't written as H2 and just as H is really unstable by itself, and so if it's by itself, it's not going to be able to stay in nature. So you need to make sure you always pair it. There are 6 other elements that you need to remember. So we have N2, we have O2, we have F2, we have Cl2, we have Br2, and we have I2. Okay, on your periodic table, you notice that these are the same elements that if you look at them, they make like an upside down L. Okay, and that's the way that you can remember it, other than for H2. But the idea is that if you see them by themselves, like if you see sodium hydroxide and oxygen gas, that it is always going to be O2. Not O, but O2. Same thing if you see fluorine gas, it's going to be F2, not F, but F2. So this is the idea behind writing out chemical formulas and making sure that they are put into a nice chemical reaction that you're able to then balance correctly, right? Because you're going to be not just given the chemical formula of the equation, the chemical equation is going to be written out in word form, and so you're going to have to be able to come up with the equations. So remember, the first thing you want to do is you want to be able to take out those words that you know don't belong in the chemical formula, like and or reacts to form, and make sure that you put the plus next to it and you put the arrow to where you think that it's separating out the reactants from the products. Then you want to go in, and all you need to do then is then come up with a chemical formula. You need to go through and do the Al, the PO4, and you need to make sure that you are you're writing those things. And just so you know, that was Miss Bridge, our secretary here at Pikesville High School. So so that's how you need to go through coming up with the chemical formulas of each of them. So I hope this helps, and you will be doing practice problems on end grade, and you'll be submitting them to me today, and that is what your assignment is going to be. If you have any questions, please let me know. You can message me, and I will return your message as soon as possible. So we'll see you guys next class, and we'll talk about everything that you've done so far.